That's all you have to do is take these tips from us and put that effort in. Whether you have a startup, considering building a business, or you have an existing business that maybe you just need to go back and refine your process.
Tighten it up.
Just tighten it up.
Welcome to the Golding Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of best practices, latest trends, and modern techniques for professional business communication, including advertising, marketing, digital channels, social media, public relations, and alternative options.
Hello and welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. My name is Kyle Golding. This is Pritch Pritchard, the professor. And today we're going to talk about a lot of different things compressed into some simple concepts about starting a business. Now, again, the professor, we all know you teach the young minds at the University of Oklahoma, before that, Ball State before that, right?
Right.
Been doing education for a long time. But, I do a little teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have taught a class at Metrotech.
Right.
And I've taught it a couple times with you and a couple times on my own. We do a Metrotech once a semester class focused on marketing. It's a whole how to start a business class. We do the marketing segment. They bring in individuals like lawyers and CPAs and bankers and HR folks, etc. Each class session, to give everyone a different insight into the things that go into starting and running a business. This is for adults that are maybe trying to career change or start a business on the side.
Right.
So a couple of years ago, a young man took that class. His name was Antonio. Antonio called me up recently. The reason I bring all this up, Antonio is starting a business, but was really overwhelmed by how to do it because he'd almost gotten too much advice from too many sources.
Right.
And so we're going to simplify that process today, because ultimately what happened was Antonio asked if he could come in and speak to me to explain that he had taken the class and remember us talking about marketing. And now he had taken that whole class and taken a couple other classes, other courses online, and then had bought into a franchise for the service industries he's in, which is resurfacing countertops and showers and things of that nature, also home inspections.
Right.
So pretty specific kind of blue-collar, manual labor type job, but he'd bought into a franchise. He's invested his time and money, was ready to make this a real business, and had received what looked like about an 800-page franchise document about how to run your business.
He said it was about this thick.
So Antonio showed up in the office with all of this paperwork and all these things and all these ideas and all these notes, and was simply overwhelmed, and understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got to looking at the document with him, and it was the marketing book that came along with owning the franchise, and the stack of paper, yay high. And I looked at the first page and the second page, and I stopped and I said, these first two pages was all the conversation we need to have. If you can understand this part, because it gets into the minutia of actual execution. Often people say, hey, what should I do for my business? It's like, well, depends on the type of business, right? And so all those questions get answered differently depending on who you are, what your business is, et cetera, right?
Right.
But I told him, I'm like, I could take this hundreds, almost thousands of pages of documents, and a couple years worth of training. I'm going to boil it down to these first two pages. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these. And as I kind of explained at the simplest level, because I thought it was going to be a really long conversation about these top 5 keys I'm about to give you, I could see the lights going off in Antonio's mind, and he was getting it. And the intimidation factor went away. So that's what we're going to do today on the podcast. We're going to take away the intimidation and the overwhelming concept of starting a business, because there are thousands of things that need to happen and in a certain order, but not so much that you can't not start.
Right.
I'm not even sure if that was an accurate statement.
It's a double negative.
You can't wait until you understand every bit of it, until you know every bit of it, until you have command of every bit of it to start your business.
Right.
Because a lot of it is starting and making those adjustments, because the audience, the real world, the competition, all those things are going to inform you along the way.
Right.
So I'm going to give you guys the top 5. I'm going to give you the layout of the book and then how I broke it down into 5 keys, and I'm going to give you each of those 5 keys with a simple kind of way to remember it, as simple as I explained it to Antonio. So hopefully it'll be informative to everyone listening to the podcast today. So the book started out, of course, it's a franchise book, right? So it started with the brand.
Right.
The brand was already established as far as the franchisee bought into, but you have to create your own local brand, et cetera. And there was a lot of information about that. There was product and services. There was a SWOT. And those of you who know what a SWOT is, you know because someone explained to you at some time. But can you imagine if someone just said to you, SWOT?
What? That's visions of police coming through the window.
What does that mean exactly? So explaining SWOT and the value and the importance of SWOT.
Right.
Audience development is an easy word to say. It's really hard to do in the real world, right? Then advertising, which was the section that was like hundreds, maybe half the book was advertising, because that's a huge catch-all for, and it was everything from traditional print and television and radio through digital media, through all types of niches within the field and the umbrella of advertising. Right. Super confusing if you don't have any experience in that. Right. PR. Now tell me, Pritch, as a absolute PR professional who's been doing public relations for your entire adult life, first through the Navy and then through working at the university, etc. Is it just easy to do PR on the side while you're also working in your home inspection and remodeling business?
Nope, not at all.
Do blue collar businesses usually have an easy time picking up effective public relations?
That's a whole different kettle of fish.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So trying to explain in some pages in a book how to do PR,
right?
It's not very realistic, is it?
No.
Even more so for a sole proprietor or a startup.
Right.
There's a lot of work that has to be done on the PR side as a PR professional, with the PR training, with your background, all those things before you can be effective at it at all.
Absolutely.
Much less reading a couple of pages in a franchise book.
Right. As you said in an earlier discussion over this, that section should have been contact a PR agency.
They hire someone. There you go. And then sales, right? And sales is another. That's a big, huge umbrella, right? And there's a lot of concepts there, and how you do it is completely different. And you get into the concept of working on your business and working in your business, right? Actually doing the work, going out and doing, in this case, resurfacing or home inspections, versus sales, versus marketing, versus public relations, and everything else that they try to throw at this sole proprietor.
Well, I'm sure they thought they were being thorough.
Right. Essentially what they were doing, but what it did was, and this young man obviously had the initiative to take the class at Metro Tech, had the initiative to do some other training, initiative to figure out a franchise that would support an industry that he wanted to work in, has some experience. Also the initiative to call me up and ask if he could have us sit down in a conversation.
Absolutely.
Wasn't afraid to invest himself, had the hustle. Had hustle and grind in him.
Yep.
And in a job it's a manual labor job. It's a hard job. He's willing to put the work in. Had invested time and money in the tools and all these things. And was then still overwhelmed by this giant document, this giant process that was almost explained too deeply without having some sort of idea how to get started. So my summation of all that helped him understand how to get started and let him know that all of this advice in this book is really irrelevant, because once you get started and what the real world feeds back to you, and paying attention to your audience, to your competition, to the market is more important than anything you can read about how to do things. So,
absolutely.
Those were the brand, product, service, SWOT, audience, advertising, PR, and sales was the top line. The top of the book. I opened the first 2 pages. I looked at the first 2 pages and came up with 5 key topics for conversion to begin selling and be able to actually build a business off this sales process. These 5 being brand, product, service differentiation, key. B, an alternative, keep it simple, adjust after launch. That's that section. Section number 2 is position. You versus the competition, right? How do you best compete is, of course, how you position yourself. We'll go through my notes here. Number 3, target audience. Not just audience, target audience. People often get caught up in, I want everyone to know about my business and appreciate it. Nope. Not everyone, just the right ones. Number 4, setting and meeting expectations. This was an in-between. This wasn't a section that was defined here in the book. but it led me here. The first three led me to number 4, setting me expectations, where I got the most feedback from Antonio about what that means and how he could utilize that. So it was missing, but it's a key element.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, number 5, focus. Focus.
Right.
If you are a hustler, if you're willing to put the work in, if you're going to invest your time and effort in yourself as a sole proprietor, as a business owner, as a startup, as a side hustle, why not focus that effort as highly as possible? You don't have unlimited money. You don't have unlimited time. It's just you, so you have to get at it, right?
Right.
So those are the 5. Let's go through each of them quickly. I got them broke down a little bit to explain again how I explained to Antonio and how it made sense to him. So back to number 1, brand, product, service, differentiation. And I lumped these two together. His brand was already established because he has a franchise.
He bought the franchise.
He needed a local connection to that.
Right.
And he was absolutely overthinking brand for a startup that is in a very specific niche of a very specific industry.
Right.
So stick with the idea of simple is best. Put your name on it.
Right.
Tell people what you do in as few words as possible.
Right.
It's that simple. So that's where his brand focus needs to be, as opposed to trying to create this elaborate brand that has all the kinds of other different connotations to it.
Right.
Don't be fancy.
Right.
Get started. Use it in the real world. Let the real world give you an idea of, does it make sense to them? Does it connect with them? If it doesn't, you make those adjustments. Once you make the adjustments, what you started off with, you throw away, and you only focus on the things that your audience pays attention to, right?
Well, and the other thing you said, that's part of that process, is how you differentiate your product from all the others in a similar market.
Yes. So here's what you need to know, folks. Being better isn't anything.
Right.
Okay? Anyone can say they're better.
Yep.
And in fact, almost everyone says they're better than their competition. You want to be an alternative. You want to be different. This is the differentiation, is being different. Different is something you can understand. Better is a vague concept.
Right.
You can explain what you do that's different, whether it's the actual product or service, the way you deliver it, your hours of operation, your price structure, your customer service. There's something in there that you can define as truly yours based on your strengths and weaknesses as an organization.
Yep.
And that the audience will gravitate to that in their mind is the highest value. And everyone has a different definition of what better is and what they value in a business relationship.
Right.
So why define it for them? Why not let them define it for themselves?
There you go.
And again, you only want to connect with people who want to do business in the way you can do business. So we get into setting and meeting expectations later on, right?
All right.
So different is nearly impossible. Or different you can explain. Better is a nearly impossible task to explain at all. Do what you do at its simplest level, and then focus on setting that as how you tell people why they should work with you, why they should hire you.
Right.
What it is you do, the strengths you have, it's all that matters. Differentiation, setting yourself apart, not trying to be better.
Right.
That one's easy, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that gets you to competition. How are you going to compete? Well, competition is all about position in your industry. What is your place in the industry?
Right.
Every industry has a gamut of, from the smallest business, maybe a sole proprietor, single operator, through the largest corporation, who hundreds of employees, maybe thousands of employees, businesses that do hundreds of dollars a year in sales to businesses that do millions of dollars in sales, and everything in between. It's a range.
Right.
And somewhere in there, every business can find a position based on what's out in the market and your strengths and weaknesses, your differentiation, what your organization brings to that market in the specific way you do it.
All that work in step 1
That's right.
comes to bear in step 2.
So everyone, get this, everyone has strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
The key is understanding your strengths, embracing them, and then with your weaknesses, either finding ways to avoid that situation where your weakness is completely head-to-head with someone else's strengths, because you want to set your strengths against their weaknesses, or maybe even mitigating or reversing those weaknesses and making them advantageous to you.
Right.
In this case, he's a brand new business that's a sole proprietor, very small business. But what happens with small businesses versus really large businesses? It's trying to U-turn a battleship.
Right.
Right? Bigger a business is, the harder they are at being nimble.
Right.
Being adaptable. Small businesses, a single owner provider, you're talking right to the business owner. You're talking to the boss. He can make decisions very, very quickly.
Right.
The bigger businesses, the less they likely to do so. He has the opportunity, because he doesn't have employees, he can decide. Maybe he wants to work nights and weekends. Maybe he wants to work alternative schedules. Maybe he wants to offer certain things that aren't traditionally offered for his business service, because he's able to do that because it's him doing it. It's his time and effort that, again, more established businesses wouldn't be able to do. So he has strengths as a small business, as a new business, as the sole proprietor that other businesses just don't have, if he's willing to embrace them. And then understand on those places where you can't do it. So if someone were to call this young man up and say, we want to hire you for our apartment complex and we need to do 500 units in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah,
Antonio
not gonna happen.
Do that.
Right.
He needs to say no to that.
Right.
100%. I can't accomplish that. I can only provide you this much service. He needs to right up front turn that business away. And this is a problem people have when they start businesses. They think they can't turn any business away. Absolutely turn that business away, but let them know, I can't accomplish that. But if you have a situation where it's this, where there's single units where you need something done alternatively, these are the things I can do, but that I can't do for you.
Right.
And immediately lean into, that's not what you do. Don't try it. And it goes back to setting and meeting expectations. You're going to set an expectation you cannot meet. So say no to the things that you should say no to. Don't compete in the areas you can't win in.
Right.
And focus just on the areas that you can win in. And in this case, he was a small business. So compete where people need speed, they need nimbleness, they need adaptability, they need alternatives to the bigger established businesses. So sometimes people say, I just have a small business. How do I compete, right? How does my local liquor store compete against Walmart if they could sell hard liquor and High Point beer now? There's a lot of things your liquor store could do that Walmart can't and won't ever do.
Right.
Different selection, different customer service, different expertise you can have in your small liquor store versus Walmart. There's all kinds of ways to be. Small is better than big. Big can be better than small. Inventory, price controls, things of that nature. Lean into what your strengths and weaknesses are, because everyone has them. Your biggest, most threatening competitor has weaknesses. Everyone does.
Right.
So go in the place where their weaknesses are. That's your position. Now, same thing with new and established. Established businesses, you would think, have they automatically have the advantage. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. New businesses have that ability to change with times. This last 18 months, right? We've all been changing. We've all been taking our old business models, throwing them out, and doing what we can do during COVID, right? The smaller you are, the newer your business is, the easier it was to make those changes.
Right.
So there's advantages to being new or being small. And so at the end of the day, your position in the industry, how you fit within all of the other offerings in the industry, your competition, etc. Position is where when you're honest about your stuff, honest about yourself internally, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Your honest strengths that create value for the audience that is different than your competition. That's position. Right there, understand that statement, folks. If you understand that, if you understand your position, you understand your strengths and weaknesses, you can compete with anyone because you only focus on the places you can compete.
Right.
My favorite piece of advice right there, right? There is the rest of the market. You have to understand the market. You have to understand the scope and scale of everyone else there to figure out your place in it or your position. You need to know your competition, what they offer, what their strengths and weaknesses are, but then completely ignore them as you operate your business. Let's say that one more time, folks. Know your competition, ignore them. Do not make decisions based on what will my competitor do, what will my competitor say, does this make me seem more attractive than my competitors? Don't make your decisions based on what they do. Make your decisions based on what you can do and should do. That focus, those setting and meeting expectations that you do. So know your competition, then ignore them. It's that simple. That's how you stick to your position. And then finally, of course, when it comes to position, avoid confusion in the market. Define your position, understand where you are in that range of competition, the things you should say yes to, all the things you should say no to, and then stick to the plan.
Right.
Don't create confusion by talking about, marketing about, or trying to do jobs that you shouldn't do. Taking in audience or sales that you shouldn't do. Focus solely on what you should be doing based on your strengths and weaknesses and your position. It's that simple. Okay? Got it so far?
Got it.
That's a whole lot, right? But this was still simpler than the big old document that Antonio had in front of him.
Of course.
No one had explained these things to him in quite this simple version, and it made sense to him. So luckily, he was able to move forward with it. So of course now, the next half of that equation when you want to sell something is, if you understand the competition, you understand your position, who is your audience?
Right.
Well, number one, it's never, ever, ever everyone.
Right.
Listen to us, folks. Everyone is not your audience. It's not even generic, such as people that live in a city or men. It's not that simple. You must dial in to a highly focused audience based on who they are, what they do, their decision-making processes, et cetera, et cetera. The more focused you can be, the more specific you can be, the more you can understand them, use the language that they need to hear in the channels that they need to receive it in a way that explains your value, the differentiation of what you do so that you connect.
We spend a lot of time in the schoolhouse talking about segmentation and target stakeholders. If you're not doing that, you're not efficient or effective with your communication. You got to understand who your target stakeholders are.
Understand who they are. Start marketing to them as focused as possible. Literally the 1% of the total audience you need to get down into, that one guy, girl, etc., who's most likely to say yes to what you're offering, the way you're offering it, and the way you offer it to them.
Yep.
Then replicate that. Just do that over and over and over again. Don't take that one success and they go, well, now I can go over here and do this. Do that over and over and over again. The key here, too, though, is consistency, because you're going to get, and not because you're not good at your business, but because this is how the world works, you're going to hear many, many, many more no's than yeses.
Absolutely.
I tell people 100 to 1. It's a good little number so that you don't get discouraged when you've had 75 no's in a row.
Right.
Or 80 or 90. But one yes can erase the 99 no's.
Right.
And if that one yes, because you've stayed focused in your audience development, you stay focused in your message and your channel, you've clearly defined your differentiation, you understand your position in the industry, if you're doing those things, those yeses can be replicated. The key is not to make a single sale. The key is to make multiple sales over and over and over again, because you're highly focused on the right audience who, again, when you set the expectation, you can meet it, who wants to do business with you in the way you're capable of, because that's your position.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's just that easy. Continually replicate that success. Don't create that little bit of success and then try to move to something else. Work from the center out, from that type of person, the target that said yes, stay there and then work out from there.
Absolutely. You put all that work in on the front end. Why throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Now, people will say, wait a minute, but there's all these other people who could utilize my product or service. Sure, they could. Don't spend your time, money, or budget on trying to attract them. They might accidentally find you.
Right.
You might get some business that comes to you because of the effort you're putting into that target audience, also snares some others around you.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine to take that business to a point. If it's a product, let them buy the product. They'll go down the road. They'll decide if they want to buy it or not. If it's a service, you really need to make sure it's still a right fit.
Right.
So if they find you, if they connect with you, if they want to create a business relationship with you outside of your target, you need to decide if they are the right client for you. Again, going back to based on all the things we've already discussed. If they are, you should say yes. If they're not, you should say no.
Exactly.
Because saying no frees you up to say yes to the people that you should be doing business with. And there'll be people right now going, wait a minute, say no to business? Yes. You need to say no to business that isn't the right fit because of the next section, setting and meeting expectations. It's that simple, folks. I don't even have a cute little slogan for you to tell you on that. Set and meet expectations. Don't ever, this is the advertising side of Pritch's number one rule of PR. Pritch's number one rule of PR is never spin. In advertising, you never, ever set yourself up as a business, a product, a service, a brand that can't deliver what you're telling people.
Right.
If you're delivering the lowest cost, you'd better or promising the lowest cost, you better deliver the lowest cost, the best customer service, the fastest turnaround time, the most inventory, whatever the offer is, whatever the enticement is, whatever it is that you're putting forward as your strengths and your position in the industry, however you market it, you tell people what you do, that's what they're going to expect. Right. If you tell people you have the best price, the largest inventory, the best customer service, the fastest turnaround time, some that's not realistic, right? There's somewhere in there you're going to fall down on that because those things all can't exist at the same time. When you create an expectation and you fail to meet it, not only have you not created a repeatable business, you actually can maybe send someone down the road saying, don't do business with them.
Right.
But when you create an expectation and then meet it, all you have to do is simply do your job. Do it the way you promise. Actually show up, do the job as promised. The ability to repeat that business for that person, specifically in Antonio's case, he's in the construction industry. There's a lot of people who talk to each other, a lot of people that know each other, and a lot of people that own multiple properties.
Right.
He could do one single job for someone who owns thousands, hundreds, maybe thousands of properties.
Right.
If he set an expectation, they say, this looks like a good idea, they want to hire him, he meets that expectation, the probability of him getting repeat business or multiple business or referrals, references from that one single happy customer is huge for him in that specific industry.
Word of mouth is one of the top ways.
Tool. Right. No one trusts better a person who's willing to put their reputation on the line for you.
Right.
Marketing is easy. Oh, I saw an ad. I saw something come across my Facebook feed. I got an email from this company. I don't know if they're any good or not. But if you say, hey, Pritch, I know you know some things about this industry. You're in this industry. Who do you use?
Right.
Who would you give me a reference for? And you've put your personal reputation on the line. Do you think I'm going to actually call that person and hire them? Yes, I am.
Certainly.
For sure. So all you have to do is set and meet expectations, which is also why you should say no to jobs that don't fit.
Right.
Because you're not going to meet the expectation. You'll make money today. You won't make money in the long run. The hour or 2 hours or 10 hours, whatever it takes for you to do your business that you spent on working in the job that wasn't going to repeat, it just takes you away from the job that could repeat.
Right.
So setting and meeting expectations is probably one of the biggest keys to business success out there. You've heard me refer to 100 times in this podcast today. You're sick of hearing me say this, but set and meet expectations is the simplest form of how you are successful in business. Repeatable business is the most profitable form of business.
Yep.
If repeatable business becomes so routine, it can be guaranteed, it can be banked upon. If you have enough clients who use you on a regular basis that are consistent, that continually have purchase. Oh man, I lost. It's a PO. It's a purchase order. I got going so fast, y'all. I get so excited about this. I got going so fast. If you have purchase orders lined up, if you have repeatable business, if you know every month you're going to do so many jobs for a certain client, or they're always going to refer you, or you are working with someone now that you know has 1,000 other opportunities exactly the same way. All you got to do is set and meet that expectation. You can bank upon that. You can go get a loan off of purchase orders. Right. You can plan on hiring and expanding your business. You can also plan to maybe take a vacation because everything's working so well. All the things that come with successful business goes back to the predictability of business. And that comes from your ability to meet the expectations that you set with your marketing, your advertising, your sales pitch, your presentation, your documentation, your brand representation.
Your performance.
There it is. All you have to do is do your job.
Right.
It's so
That's all.
easy. And again, now the fifth point, it wraps this all up, but it hits every one of the other points we've talked about today, is focus. He's got a new business. He's going to have to work in that business. He's going to have to be doing manual labor every single day. He also has to market his business, try to gain new sales, try to develop audience, which is additional work for him, right? Mm-hmm. He can't afford to waste time or money.
Right.
It's limited on both aspects. Focus. The most likely to say yes, focus. The simplest version of your brand, focus. The audience that you go after, focus. The expectations you create so that you can meet them, focused.
Yep.
Simple, to the point, specific to your strengths, trying to avoid your weaknesses, your position in the industry. Every bit of this works better and better and better and better at every level the more focused it is.
Right.
Like a laser. The more focused you are, not everyone needs to know about your business, just people likely to hire you. Not everyone needs to understand your brand, just people who are in the industry that can and will hire you. Not everyone is your customer. We've told you that before. But the people most likely to say yes, focus on them, tell them what they need to hear in the way they need to hear it, as simple as possible. Show up, do the job you promised, the way you promised, and then be ready for repeatable business. That's simple.
There you go.
It's that simple. You don't need a 1,000-page manual to tell you that.
Right.
You just need a 30-minute episode of the Neo Marketing Podcast with Kyle and Pritch to explain that to you. Now, look in the show notes. I will give you the details of those 5 steps and all the sub-steps that we said too. We went really fast today. We got excited. I love talking about this stuff. That's how I tripped up over the word PO. Like, what is a P? The P is purchase. What's the O? Oh, it's a purchase order. That's right. I got tripped up because I get excited because this stuff is great. And it is that simple. If you can understand how to start and run a business at that level, and you have a legitimate business, obviously, you know, it's not selling pet rocks. We're talking about
right.
an actual business that provides something of value, a product or service that other people value. They'll make an economic exchange for you. It doesn't matter if it's B2C, B2B, even B2G. If you can take these 5 steps, operate in this way, be super disciplined, very, very focused. Number 5, focused. If you're focused on all these things in all that way, the probability, the potential for you to have a successful business goes way, way, way up.
Yep.
The further away from that focus you get, that probability for success goes down and down and down. It's that simple, right?
Mm-hmm. There you go.
There you have it, folks. So there it is. Professor Kyle today. My once a year when I get to be the professor, not 365 like the Professor Pritchard. But having that exchange with this nice young man, understanding that simplification was the key and all he needed. And I guarantee you, it's been about 2 weeks since he came into the office. I guarantee he's out hustling. He's out grinding. Yep. He has refocused himself and knows exactly what he needs to do. I guarantee you he's making business off of those tips and his effort. Now, all it is 100% his effort, and I believe that young man is going to put the effort in. That's all you have to do is take these tips from us and put that effort in. Whether you have a startup, considering building a business, or you have an existing business that maybe you just need to go back and refine your process.
Tighten it up.
Just tighten it up. Yep. Just get a little better. I think after COVID, people understand tightening up, effectiveness, efficiency, maybe re-examine. Are we really focused in the right areas? Is this our proper audience? Are we missing opportunities? Are our strengths and weaknesses the same today as they were maybe 2 years ago because maybe we lost staff or things changed or the market changed because of COVID or other factors, legal, otherwise. So take the time, take these tips, examine what you're doing. If you're in a startup position, focus there. If you're running a business, think about how you can add these ideas and concepts, refine what you're doing. And, as always, provide us some feedback.
There you go.
Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like I said, the notes will be there. If you need more explanation, hit us up. We'd love to talk with you online, otherwise, about all of this process and anything that goes into building a successful business, because that's what we do here on the Neo Marketing Podcast. Till next time, good luck.
Ciao.
This has been the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. Thanks for listening.